politicians, like many other leaders, wear sleep deprivation like a badge of honor. And that's really the problem we are facing. Because as many political leaders have acknowledged, including Bill Clinton, who said, I made my most important mistakes when I was tired. He did not specify what mistakes. But the bottom line is that when we are running on empty, that's when we don't have the same impulse control or the same ability to make good decisions. And when we sacrifice sleep on the altar of some mythical productivity, we pay a heavy price.
Unfortunately, it's not just the politicians that are wearing it as a badge of honor. Sometimes it's students, college students.
Absolutely. College students have this saying, grades, social life, sleep, pick two, and they don't pick sleep. When we've been going to all these colleges and we create sleep first for them, and we have signs that change the language. Like one of the famous sayings is the John Bon Jovi song, I'll sleep when I'm dead. And we cross out the word dead in the signs and say, I'll sleep when I'm tired.
Yeah.
And basically changing the culture. Also corporate leaders, we have them often congratulating employees for working 24/7, which is really the cognitive equivalent of coming to work drunk. And you wouldn't congratulate an employee by saying, hey, glad you had 5 shots before you got into the office. But it's the same performance level. So we now have this science, and we just need to acknowledge it. And if you think of it, Stacy, there have been many times in our culture when we believe the wrong things.
Let's talk briefly about sleeping pills, because that's a topic I think a lot of us have questions about. We've read about Ambien, we've read about different sleeping pills and the dangers associated with them. Are there any that are acceptable or safe for us to use? Anything over the counter, perhaps, that is?
So in the book, I have an enormous amount of natural alternatives. I think, first of all, we are the only country in the world, other than New Zealand, that allows the advertising of sleeping pills. Because if you think of it, you have all these beautiful pictures of happy people frolicking in the fields, while a cheerful voice is reading 92 appalling side effects. Like, you may get in your car and drive without being aware of it. Or you may have suicidal tendencies, but hey, you'll go to sleep. And so I think we need to realize that it's kind of first of all, let me say, there are times maybe in one's life when you had a traumatic experience, when you are very heavily jet-lagged or something, when you go to a sleeping pill. The sleep is not the same, it's not as recharging, we have the scientific evidence now. But the adverse effects of chronic use are so overwhelming that why not try all the alternatives? Mm-hmm. And let's say you have an acute case of insomnia, then there is cognitive behavioral therapy, which has been proved to work better than sleeping pills. So there is a whole gamut of things which start with my transition to sleep and the hot bath and the lavender tea and the lavender sprays and acupuncture and breathing techniques, all the way to CBT. So it may seem like more work, but hey, it's really such a huge difference in how we feel and not risking our long-term health that it's worth it. Also, I have a lot of stories in the book that show how dangerous it is. I mean, Nora Ephron, before she died, told me that when she was in Paris, she woke up one morning and the back of her hair was wet and the bathtub was full. She had woken up, filled the bathtub, got in it without any memory of it. She could have drowned. People have gotten in the car, killed people. There's the Ambien, I don't know if there are any lawyers here, but there is the Ambien excuse now in law, where you use it as an excuse for mitigating your sentence or getting off. And there are also funny incidents. I had a friend of mine who took Ambien, and 2 weeks later, this huge packet of clothes arrived, and she realized that while in an ambient state she had ordered all these clothes, which were hooker clothes.
Oh my. Well, let's talk about naps, one of my favorite topics. The Huffington Post has actually had a nap room, I read, since 2011.
Yes, we have 2 nap rooms in New York. In our office here in Washington, we have a dedicated nap room, and we recommend and encourage our reporters, our editors, when they are tired in the middle of the afternoon, to have a nap instead of having a 5th cup of coffee or a 3rd cinnamon bun or whatever it was that would keep them going and give them an extra boost of energy.
So you feel like naps really work. Do they actually replace a bad night's sleep, or?
Well, here's the thing. I wouldn't use naps as an alternative to a good night's sleep, but if there, even with the best intentions, we all have nights when we have a sick child or a sick parent, or we are very jet lagged, when we don't get a good night's sleep. So I would use a nap as a way to reset your day. And even a 20-minute nap, I mean, Winston Churchill used to call them power naps, can reset your day.
Absolutely. I wonder if the nap room at Huffington Post looks like this.
Well, actually, we have one, not as elegant as this. We have one with a bed, and we have one with a metro nap, which is these futuristic naps that you close it in front, and it's plays music if you want it, and makes you tea. I don't know. It's pretty high tech. So our reporters can choose.
Another topic you talk a lot about in the book is drowsy driving. So, certainly drunk driving deaths have gone down quite a bit since 1982. But you're calling this problem with drowsy driving the silent epidemic.
Yes, because of the campaign in the 80s, the designated driver campaign, we've increased awareness about the dangers of drunk driving. And most people are aware when they're drunk. But now, we really think that we can power through when we are tired. And so it is becoming the silent epidemic, with the numbers going up. Last year, 8,000 people died because they got behind the wheel when they were tired. And there were 1.2 million crashes. And a person falls asleep behind the wheel. When I say falls asleep, it could be a micro sleep of 4 seconds.
Right.
Every second. So it's really something that we need to address. And we've launched a petition with change.org. And we've launched a campaign with Uber, because also now with ride-sharing technologies, there are more alternatives.
Let's talk about dreams for a minute. You alluded to this in your remarks. You advocate reinstating dreams to a central place in our lives, and you even suggest keeping a dream journal. Why should we pay attention to our dreams?
So if you think of it in terms of our evolution, the dreams must have a purpose. You know, of course, going back to ancient times and every religion, dreams have a very central place as a way of God communicating with human beings. But even if you don't believe in God or a higher power, clearly something is happening. And I think, why not be aware of what is going on in our minds while we're asleep? I mean, it's a third of our life. And when we're sleep deprived, it's very hard to remember our dreams. When we begin to get the sleep we need, we start remembering. And some of our dreams are very mundane. They're like processing the day. Some are anxiety dreams. I have so many dreams about being late. Here I was today. It's like it's a recurring dream. But some are incredibly profound, and they connect us with deeper parts of ourselves. And also just kind of the curiosity. Now every night when I go to sleep, I feel, what's going to be in the movie house tonight?
And you're keeping a dream journal.
And I have a dream journal, and I travel with it. And I have a pen with a flashlight so that I can write. If I wake up in the middle of the night, I can write in my dream journal without turning on the light, which disrupts your memory of your dreams.
What about this waking up in the middle of the night? One of the passages in the book that I enjoyed so much was this idea that it's really, we should be looking at waking up in the middle of the night as a luxury rather than a detriment.
Yes.
Talk about what we should do in the middle of the night when we wake up.
Well, first of all, historically, before the invention of the light bulb, what they call segmented sleep was the norm. People would wake up in the middle of the night. But the important thing was that nobody went back to doing what they were doing during the day. It was a very special time. There were even prayer books that were written specifically, and they were called prayer books for when waking up in the middle of the night. People would recount their dreams. They would share more intimate reflections and feelings with each other. So it was a time for reflection and a time for connecting with a deeper part of ourselves. So now, if I wake up in the middle of the night, I don't stress about it at all. I actually happen to meditate, so I prop myself up and I start meditating, and inevitably I fall asleep. If you don't meditate, in the book I have an appendix of music, sounds, meditations that you can just listen to, but not on your smartphone.
Yeah.
You can, I have an iPod that has all my sleep, anything that helps me sleep. And you know what, it doesn't matter how hokey it is. I have people in the book like traders and private equity people and real people who are very practical in their day life who tell me some of the things they do at night. Like I love one of them where he said he counts all his blessings, his children and grandchildren, as sheep jumping over the fence. And he sees them one after the other, and it always puts him to sleep. The key here is remembering the things you love about your life, rather than the things that worry you or you're anxious about or judging yourself about.
You are also touring around the country, I think, visiting college campuses. I know initially you had wanted to start with a 50 college campus tour, and now I think you've expanded that to 100 colleges.
Yes, I wrote a piece about our 50 colleges where we're doing sleep fairs and get students involved. And there's such a demand that now we're 100, and I was just talking to my office on the way here, and we're up to 120. And if you have any college that you have children or grandchildren in, let us know. We work both with students and with every college has some equivalent of a wellness department, a mental health department. So we work both with administrators and with students. We get everything donated. I donate books. We have major brands donating things like from eye masks to white noise machines to Land's End has donated all the PJs. So, we can get them hooked with free things, how kids like free things. And also, we have brought Marriott and JetBlue, and we run social media contests around the importance of sleep. And people get free stays at the Marriott and free JetBlue flights. And even so that you realize how passionate I am about this subject, my daughters are about to kill me. But because I've created a sleep paradise in my apartment in New York, I have put it on Airbnb, not for money, but for, there's a competition. We've partnered with Airbnb, and they've run this competition. It's just closed, where people wrote an essay of what would your day be like if you had gotten a full night's sleep the night before. And the winner, was going to be decided by Airbnb, is going to spend the night in my bedroom. I will cook them a Greek dinner, conducive to sleep, give them a personal sleep consultation, then leave them alone to sleep. And in the morning, we'll have hair and makeup come in and get them ready to appear on HuffPost morning show to talk about their experience.
Fantastic.
So as you can see, the goal here is changing the culture. And I believe the way to change a culture is to swarm it from every angle. And I feel every one of you, like you, Stacy, you've read the book. I'm very impressed by how much you've absorbed and articulating so eloquently. Can become an ambassador to pay it forward. It's like, I think once we see the value and begin to change our own habits, then we want to spread the message. It's like when we find something that works for us, we want to share it with the people we care about. And I feel that's how a culture is changed. And at some point, I believe sooner rather than later, we're going to have this critical mass that suddenly will make it unacceptable for people to brag about being sleep deprived, for employers to expect employees to be always on. A lot of things that have been normal in our culture, I believe, will suddenly become the exception.
Very good. Well, why don't we pause now and invite our audience members to ask questions. We should have some mics.
Maybe we can make it a little, can we put up the lights?
Yes, can we put up the lights a little bit?
Hello.
So we can see?
Hi. I agree with, first of all, we're not going to talk politics, but notwithstanding that, I agree with much of what you've said. And sleep has been an issue for me forever. And everything you've said resonates. So, that being said, I now wear, I'm sure many people here, a Fitbit. And I monitor what I thought was sleep, and I know when I have a good night's sleep. But when I look the next day with what my Fitbit says, it's shocking because I don't get, even popping up in the middle of the night, I don't get the same quantity of sleep that I should. So have you, in your assessment of sleep, have you focused on this Fitbit phenomenon and what that means?
So yes, I mean, wearable technologies are going to be very important, but they're very imperfect at the moment. You know, the measurements are not very accurate, and I think what is important is to look at how much sleep you get. You know, when did you get to sleep? When did you wake up? And how do you feel? I think we are the best barometer. I mean, I use the Jawbone app. I'm not against using wearable devices, but I don't think we should obsess over their exact readings. If you wake up and you got 7 to 9 hours, whatever works for you in that span, and feel great, that's what matters. So that's how I see wearable devices. I mean, they're going to keep improving and improving. You know, every month they get better and better. So I wouldn't use it to kind of beat ourselves up with. We can use it to encourage behavior change, as Mark Bertolini, the CEO of Aetna, is using Fitbits, which is distributed to all Aetna employees, to track their sleep if they choose to opt into this program. And if they get 7 hours or more, they get $25 a night. Again, it's not so much the amount of money, although $25 is $25. It's the fact that you have a CEO of a company encouraging that kind of behavior change, and also presenting it as something that is advantageous to the bottom line, because it reduces healthcare costs and improves productivity. You pick.
Okay.
Hi.
Right here.
Hi. Could you talk about the impact of television, watching television right before you go to sleep? I'm sorry. Could you talk about the impact of watching television right before you go to sleep? And second,
Yes,
is there anything important about whether you go to bed and start sleeping at 10 or 11 or 12? Is there I've heard that if you, anytime after 10 o'clock that you go to sleep, you're not benefiting yourself as much as if you did go to bed by 10 o'clock.
Well, these are great questions. First of all, I hope I'm not going to deprive you of something you love, but television just before bed is not good. Basically, I mean, for two reasons. First of all, anything on a screen is stimulating the brain. And also, if you fall asleep while the television is on, it's likely, unless you have some kind person in your family who's going to turn it off for you, it's likely to wake you up at some point during the night. And then because you haven't had a transition to sleep, it's going to be harder to go back to sleep. So I would not use television to go to sleep. I think we need to use that transition from day life to sleep in a more kind of ritualistic way, creating your own ritual, whatever that is. And if you want to do something in bed before you go to sleep, read. And I try to read things that have nothing to do with work, like novels. And when I say novels, I don't even read modern novels. I read like Jane Austen or Trollope, kind of novels that take me to another world.
Or you said poetry.
Or poetry,
Yeah.
or philosophy, or something that disconnects me from my world. Your question about what time you go to sleep, there is a lot of scientific literature about going to sleep before midnight. It's like that is kind of the key, because it's good to go to sleep when the world is going to sleep, because it's like there's more peace around you. And I know from myself, when I go to sleep after midnight, it's not as recharging. So going to sleep in that span, 10 to 11, is just a much more recharging time. But if you can't, for whatever reason, it's more important to get the full 7 to 9 hours rather than worry about that too much. Again, it's terribly important not to worry about any of that, because you don't want to become like stressed about how you're doing it.
Right. You don't want to worry about anything.
Yeah.
Okay, Craig?
Hi. Hi, Arianna. I'm Amelia. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm a millennial, and I really liked how you described millennials as possibly the most stressed out generation. And I was wondering if you could remember back to your episode in 2007, and I was wondering if you could remember your stresses. I'm sure you were busy with lots of different transitions, and I was just curious, in that moment, which you said never specifically happened, but that moment that you thought happened with the doctors telling you you just need more sleep, what were the first things that came in your mind as reasons? I can't give up sleep because I have to do this, or I have to do this, or this is more important. And just curious, can you remember what was your reasoning at the time of, well, these are the things that are important for why I should be giving up sleep? Because I just wonder if maybe your reasons then, or what you thought were reasons, sort of hearken to our generation today. We certainly have our hopes and dreams and ambitions, but I agree with you, none of them are worth giving up sleep over. So,
Well, that's a great question. First of all, let me make something very clear, which I think is maybe implied in your question, which is, would I have achieved what I've done in my life if I had gotten more sleep, right? And the answer is 1,000% yes, and I would have done it with less damage to my health, less damage to my relationships, and better decisions on my part. Because when I look back at my life, a lot of the mistakes I made were mistakes of exhaustion, including hiring mistakes. Anybody here who hires people knows that's one of the toughest things to go through. And I find when I'm sleep deprived, I don't make the right decisions. I just ignore the red flags. I'm not as in tune with what is not being said but needs to be noticed. And I think the other thing is that is obviously an issue with your generation and has been in some form or another with all young people, is what is known as FOMO, the fear of missing out. Like, I'm going to go to sleep, and what if I miss out on this or that? And the truth is that we're missing out on our lives because we're sleepwalking through it. And for me now, there's nothing more important than showing up fully alert in my life. Because the alternative is walking through my life, kind of checking the boxes and missing out the joy of it. I mean, I love being here with you, but trust me, if I was sleep deprived, I would be looking forward to being on the plane going back to New York. And it's happened to everybody. And so you basically miss the moment. My mother used to say to us all the time, don't miss the moment. And so that's kind of what we're trying to say to the college students we interact with. And that's what I feel is something that can transform what we prioritize in our lives. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mike. I just had a quick question for you, Arianna. Is there a role for the healthcare companies? You mentioned the CEO of Aetna working within his company, but is there a role for the healthcare insurance companies in encouraging some of the behaviors that you're recommending in the book?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's essential. In fact, speaking to the HHS secretary today, I mean, they're looking, because of a new CDC study that just came out last week, actually, to make sleep one of the prevention pillars. Because right now, if you go to their prevention and wellness portal, you see about nutrition, you see about exercise, but sleep is the other pillar. It's like the third leg of the stool. It's actually the first leg of the stool. And even if you just want to lose weight, and extreme weight is obviously linked to obesity and diabetes, which is another epidemic. Instead of putting on the alarm to go to the gym before you've gotten all the sleep you need, sleep in. Because all the studies show that when you're sleep deprived, you are going to crave sugars and carbs and all the things that put on weight. And it's just amazing when we recognize that. And if you look at last year, we had all these casualties of executives collapsing on their treadmills. You know, the CEO of United collapsing with a massive heart attack. The head of M&A at JP Morgan collapsing and dying. And you think, these are all these exhausted type A executives who think, hey, I have the discipline to get up and get on my treadmill. But they think that sleep is not as important. So that's why this shift in the culture is so key.
Yeah.
Hi, I was wondering, how do you find out how many hours of sleep that you need?
I think the easiest way is when you wake up fully recharged. I mean, for me, it's very clear that 8 is my optimal, my kind of peak performance. 7, I'm kind of okay. And also, remember, unless somebody is a narcoleptic or severely depressed, you cannot oversleep. You can overeat, but you cannot oversleep. So it's just a question of becoming conscious of how we feel when you wake up. Another key is you wake up without the alarm. Incidentally, just think of it, the word alarm. Basically waking up in a fight or flight mode with our body flooded with the cortisol stress hormone before anything has happened. And one of the most barbaric things, I don't know if anybody does it, but please don't, is the snooze button. The snooze button. Why would you use the snooze button? It's like, what sort of relief does it give us? I mean, until I was able to wake up without an alarm, I still put an alarm on if I have something important in the morning, just in case, right. But I always wake up before it. But until I did, I would always set the alarm at the last possible moment I had to get out of bed. And hotels, you know, in my hotel last night, you know, you ask for an alarm call and then they tell you, would you like a follow-up? And I said, no, I would not like a follow-up. I'm asking you to wake me up when I have to get out of bed. I don't know why I would want you to call me twice.
Craig, we have one right here. Right here, Craig.
What about sleep apnea?
A major and often undiagnosed problem. And now people who recognize either through a partner who feels that they're having trouble breathing. It's not just snoring, because you can snore without having sleep apnea. But I think if anybody suspects they may have sleep apnea, it's very important to have a sleep study done. Because now there's so much you can do. You know, people used to think of the big CPAP machine you have to put on. Now Philips has brought out one that's much more portable and easier to use. There are guards that you can use in your mouth. You know, there's a lot you can do. But people who've taken steps to deal with their sleep apnea have expressed incredible difference in how they feel. I have a lot in the book about sleep apnea.
Thank you. I've been waiting patiently. I know a number of women who, past menopause, have huge, I'm one of them, sleep problems. And I definitely think, I don't know if there have been studies done about hormones and sleep with women. If you know of any, I'd like to hear about that. I know many, 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 many women who never had sleep problems, including me, until after menopause.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm past menopause, so I can definitely speak to that. I think there are certain things that are absolutely essential, like the temperature of one's room. I mean, I find 67 degrees is my optimal temperature. The other thing is, because hormones tend to wake us up at night, to make sure that we eliminate anything else that may wake us up. So blackout curtains, or if you don't have blackout curtains, an eye mask. I actually walk around my room, my hotel room, and notice the little red lights. Do you know how many blinking red lights there are in a hotel room? And I travel with black masking tape, and I cover them all. It's like the phone has a blinking light. The alarm clock on your bed, by your bed has a blinking light. The TV has a blinking light. In my hotel last night, every light on the wall had a blinking light. It took me like 10 minutes to cover them all. But it's totally worth it, because if you notice when you wake up and that light is there, it just stimulates your brain. So I think menopause requires being even more rigorous about what needs to be done to protect your sleep. The transition to sleep is even more key. All these things that I mentioned, and dozens more in the book, are even more essential.
Well, I think even more is falling asleep rather than just when you wake up and have to go back to sleep. I mean, I know people have both types of issues, and I think, I mean, I'm a person who did self-hypnosis and meditation, and at this point, none of that works.
Well, I have picked my 12 top meditations in an appendix to the book. I would love you to try them. You may hate 11 of them, but find one that does it for you. I mean, I have 2 among the 12, actually, that I have never listened to the end, because they always put me to sleep. So I think what is exciting here is that we have to become our own scientist. And what may work for me may not work for you, but there are so many choices. And if we prioritize it, we will find the solutions. And also, I'm going to give everybody my email address. So if you have any questions, let me know. It's Arianna@HuffingtonPost.com. And also, I would love to encourage you to write about your own experiences, because we are creating like a culture where people are discussing this issue and where we are giving permission to ourselves and to others to get enough sleep. I would love, the millennial to write about it, because millennials are going to listen to you more, they're going to listen to me. people in finance are going to have another group of people who are going to listen to them. So I think everybody has their own sphere of influence. So when we express and talk about our own realizations, it's going to have an impact on other people.
I think we have time for just one more question.
Thank you. Can you bank sleep?
Can you bank sleep?
Yeah. So you get 7 hours instead of 8, 5 days a week. You're short 5 hours. So you pick up 2.5 each day on the weekends. Does that work?
So first of all, it's not ideal, but the recovery time is so important. Like last week, I had one of those weeks when a couple of nights I didn't get enough sleep. So this weekend was my recovery time. And it isn't just getting more sleep than normal. It was also like having a massage and having acupuncture and basically recharging my body. So I think what your question is incredibly important, because what becomes a cumulative problem is if we don't move into recovery. And then, we reduce our immune system, we increase our inflammation, and all the markers of health are against us. So yes, there will be days. What I'm saying is that we need to make a decision for what we want to do most of the time. We're never going to do it all the time. Even I, who speaks about that every day now, who is so passionate about the subject, I would say I do it about 95% of the time, which is pretty good. But there will be days when you have a sick child, you have a sick parent, you have a big deadline, whatever it is, when we won't be able to do what we know is best for us. And then what is very important is not to judge ourselves and to find the opportunity to course correct as soon as possible.
Okay. Well, this concludes our program. And
Thank you.